So here's another test case for count substring. This is the same test case actually as the previous one. Again, we're expecting the value 5, but a different bug has been introduced by one of my TAs. I can see that because when I run the code, I get the value 8 instead of the expected value 5. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reload the code, and we're going to try this again, this time stepping through the code to see if we can figure out why it's behaving not as expected. So again, I'm going to look for that jump to count substring. I'm going to set a breakpoint because I want to step through that function. Hex 40054. Add a breakpoint there, and I'm going to go ahead and run starting that point. Okay, I'm going to abort because I want to step through. I don't want to continue running at that point. Okay, so if I step, now I'm actually in the count substring function. It's going to set up its value 0, 0, 0 for count, 0 for I and D, so that looks good. When I step, this is going to give me this is the outer loop, and so again I expect to do at least one iteration of the outer loop. Actually, I'm expecting to do 14 iterations of the outer loop. And I can see indeed I fall through and initialize match to true and j to 0. And I'd expect to do an iteration of the inner loop. And indeed I fall through there also, so I am doing an iteration of the inner loop. Now I'm to the point in the code where I'm going to do these comparisons of the first character in this string and the first character in the substring. Again, I expect these both to be S, and this branch to be taken, because since the comparison is valid, it should branch over this case and do the next character. So I go back to the code. I do the loads, and I look in T4 and T5, and yes, it is loaded these two S's, and then the branch is indeed taken. It jumps over there. So now I can do J++, and J is T3, so that code should work. And it does another iteration. And so I'll load the second character, the two second characters. And I look at this code, and I see that they're different. And so that's right. So S, the second one, this should be an S, and I'm assuming 61 is the A. And so this time, the comparison should fail. So when we go to the branch, it should fail, but it didn't. Again, it went to this J++ statement. So something is wrong there. And what is wrong? So, so we can see that I thought this comparison should fail, but it did in fact succeed. And the reason why is because we were comparing the right two things, T4 and T5, but we weren't comparing them for equality. We're comparing them for greater than or equal. So we need to check to see if if we look at the code that this is based on, we are in fact, the original code had a not equals, which we inverted to be an equals. If they're equal, we skip over this code, and that was instead translated to greater than or equal. So we should change that to equal, and if we do, we now should be able to reload the code. Again, I'm going to set a breakpoint at the appropriate spot to get me at the beginning of the function. And now I can step through. So here's the first iteration. Again, S and S should be equal, so this should work. We should again take this branch over the break out of the loop, and you see we did. Now the second iteration around the loop, again we have values that are after the step different. 73 and 61 shouldn't be equal, and so the branch should fall through, and it does this time. And so at this point, I've checked to see that at least the case that was broken is now fixed, and so I can continue through the rest of the code and see if it actually produces the right answer. And so look at my console. In fact, it does. So it now finds 5 cases, which is what's expected. So we think we've found the bug, at least the bugs that were exposed by this test case. So I could produce additional test cases to convince myself that, in fact, the code is completely correct.